My name is Amanda, and I'm 34 years old. Last Tuesday changed everything I thought I knew about family, loyalty, and the price of success. I'm sitting here in my new apartment, boxes still unpacked around me, trying to make sense of how a single signature could expose 15 years of lies and manipulation. 3 months ago, I owned a thriving digital marketing agency. I had built it from nothing in my garage while my husband Jake slept soundly upstairs, believing I was just playing around with some hobby business. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had already sold that little hobby for $15 million. The irony still makes me laugh, though it's a bitter sound now. They spent months scheming to take something from me that I had already given away. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You know that feeling when you realize you've been the punchline of a joke you didn't even know was being told? That's where my story begins. With a family dinner that turned into an ambush, a husband who chose his family over his wife, and a piece of paper that was supposed to strip away everything I had worked for. But here's what they didn't count on. I may have been quiet all these years, but I wasn't naive. I wasn't the pushover they thought they married into the family. And I definitely wasn't going to let them destroy me without a fight. If you're watching this and you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever had your accomplishments minimized or your voice silenced, then this story is for you. Because what happened next taught me that sometimes the people closest to us can be the ones trying to hold us back the most. The morning it all started, I woke up feeling grateful. Isn't that twisted? I actually felt blessed to have Jake's family in my life. His mother, Patricia, had called the night before, her voice warm and inviting. Amanda, dear, we're having a family meeting tomorrow. Nothing serious, just some business matters to discuss. Can you and Jake come by around 7? I should have known. Patricia never called me dear unless she wanted something. But I was in such a good mood. The sale of my company had just gone through escrow. The lawyers had assured me everything was finalized. $15 million was sitting in my account, and I was planning to surprise Jake with the news over dinner. I spent the afternoon at the salon, getting my hair done. I bought a new dress, something that made me feel confident and successful. I wanted to look the part when I told them about the biggest achievement of my life. I imagined their faces, lighting up with pride, Jake sweeping me into his arms, Patricia finally seeing me as more than just the quiet girl her son had settled for. God, I was so naive. When we pulled into the circular driveway of the Hartwell family mansion, I noticed more cars than usual. Jake's 3 brothers were all there with their wives. His sister Monica had driven down from Seattle with her husband. Even great-aunt Judith, who rarely left her retirement community, was sitting in the front parlor when we walked in. What's the occasion? I whispered to Jake as we hung our coats in the marble foyer. He shrugged, but something flickered across his face. Something that should have been my first warning. Mom said it was important family business. You know how she gets. The formal dining room had been set with the good china, the kind Patricia only brought out for major holidays or when she wanted to impress someone. Candles flickered on the mahogany table, casting long shadows across the faces of 15 family members who all seemed to be watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. Amanda, sweetheart. Patricia stood at the head of the table, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, her smile sharp as a blade. Please, sit here next to me. We have something very exciting to discuss. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are viewing from. Before I tell you about this life-changing decision, hit like and subscribe to hear more real stories about family loyalty and betrayal that might just change how you see your own relationships. That's when I knew I had walked into a trap. But I had no idea how deep it went, or how much it would cost me to find out who my real family was. To understand what happened that night, you need to know about the Hartwell family dynamics. They weren't just wealthy. They were generational money, the kind that comes with expectations and unwritten rules about who belongs and who doesn't. When I married Jake 8 years ago, I thought I was joining a loving family. I was 26, working as a junior marketing coordinator at a small firm, living paycheck to paycheck in a studio apartment. Jake was everything I thought I wanted. Handsome, successful, from a stable family that actually ate dinner together every Sunday. Patricia Hartwell had been polite but distant at our wedding. She smiled for pictures but never quite looked at me directly. "She'll warm up," Jake assured me. "She just needs time to get used to you." 8 years later, I was still waiting for that warmth. Jake's father, Robert, was easier to read. He simply didn't see me as relevant. I was furniture. In his son's life, something pleasant to look at but not worth engaging with intellectually. During family gatherings, he would ask me about my little job and nod absently when I tried to explain my work. The siblings were a different kind of challenge altogether. Marcus, the eldest at 38, ran the family's real estate empire. He had his father's dismissive attitude, but lacked the charm to make it seem polite. His wife Helen was a social climber who treated me like competition for resources I didn't even know existed. Then there was David, 36, who managed the family's investment portfolio. David was actually kind to me, but in the way you're kind to a child, patting my head metaphorically whenever I shared an opinion about anything beyond cooking or decorating. His wife Sarah was sweet but completely dominated by family pressure to maintain appearances. The youngest brother, Ryan, was 32 and still single. He treated me like I was invisible most of the time, which honestly felt like a mercy compared to the others. At least with Ryan, I knew where I stood. Monica, Jake's only sister, was 35 and lived in Seattle with her tech executive husband. She visited twice a year and spent most of those visits making subtle comparisons between my life and hers. "Oh, Amanda still hasn't had children yet? That's so modern of her." Or, "Amanda's still working at that little marketing company? How quaint." But the real complexity was Jake himself. At home, he was loving and supportive. He encouraged my work, helped with household tasks, and seemed genuinely proud of my small successes. But the moment we entered his family's sphere, something shifted. He became quieter, more deferential to his parents, and somehow less connected to me. I started my business 3 years into our marriage, partly out of necessity and partly out of frustration. Jake's salary was good, but living up to Hartwell standards was expensive. The family expected us to maintain a certain lifestyle, attend certain events, contribute to certain charities. My marketing coordinator salary barely covered my share of these obligations. What started as freelance work to make ends meet grew into something I never expected. I was good at digital marketing, really good. I understood how to create emotional connections between brands and consumers, how to tell stories that made people care. My client list grew through word of mouth, then through strategic networking. By year 2, I had hired my first employee. By year 3, I had 6 people working for me. By year 5, we were handling major accounts and I was making more money than Jake. That's when things got complicated. The family's attitude toward my success was strange. They were proud when it reflected well on them. Amanda's little company designed that campaign you loved, but dismissive when it came to actual business decisions or financial discussions. I was never invited to contribute ideas about the family's business ventures, never asked for my professional opinion on their marketing strategies. "It's adorable how hard you work," Patricia said once, watching me answer emails during a family barbecue. "But you mustn't let it consume you. Family should always come first." The irony was that everything I built was for family. Every late night, every difficult client, every risk I took, it was all to prove that I belonged, that I was worthy of being a Hartwell. I thought success would earn me respect and acceptance. Instead, it painted a target on my back. 6 months before, that fateful family dinner, something changed in the Hartwell household dynamics. It started with small things. Hushed conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. Family text chains that Jake would quickly close when I walked by. Invitations to family events that somehow got lost before reaching me. The first major red flag came during Jake's birthday party in March. I had planned an intimate dinner at our favorite restaurant, but Patricia insisted on hosting a family celebration at the mansion instead. Amanda, dear, surely you understand that family traditions matter more than your little plans. During that dinner, I overheard Marcus talking to David about the Amanda problem. They didn't know I was in the hallway, returning from the restroom. She's getting too comfortable, Marcus said. Making decisions like she's actually part of the family business discussions. Mom's concerned about how much influence she's gaining over Jake. My blood ran cold. Influence? I barely spoke during family gatherings because every opinion I shared was subtly dismissed or redirected. What influence could they possibly be worried about? That conversation haunted me for weeks. I started paying closer attention to family interactions, and patterns emerged that I had been too trusting to notice before. When Jake and I bought our house 2 years earlier, Patricia had helped us find it through Marcus's real estate connections. What I learned later was that we had paid 15% above market value, and Marcus had pocketed a substantial commission that Jake never mentioned. When Jake needed a new car last year, Robert had insisted we buy through the family's preferred dealership, owned by Patricia's brother. Again, we paid premium prices for family loyalty, though the loyalty seemed to flow only one direction. The more I observed, the more I realized that the Hartwells viewed their family members as assets to be managed, not individuals to be respected. Marriages were strategic alliances, careers were evaluated for their benefit to the collective, and dissent was not tolerated. Meanwhile, my business was exploding in ways I hadn't anticipated. The digital marketing landscape was shifting rapidly, and my company was perfectly positioned to help traditional businesses navigate online transformation. We landed a contract with a major retail chain, then another with a restaurant franchise, then a third with a healthcare network. By summer, I was getting acquisition offers, real ones, from serious investors who saw the potential in what we had built. The first offer was for $8 million. I laughed it off, thinking it was a joke. The second was for $12 million. The third, from a tech conglomerate looking to expand their marketing services division, was for $15 million. I should have told Jake immediately. That's what marriages are supposed to be about. Sharing the big moments, making major decisions together. But something held me back. Maybe it was those overheard conversations about my influence over him. Maybe it was the way his family had consistently minimized my professional accomplishments. Or maybe it was a growing sense that I needed to protect this achievement until I understood what it meant for our future. I hired my own lawyer, independent of any family connections. Sandra Chen was a sharp corporate attorney who had built her practice representing entrepreneurs in tech acquisitions. "This is a substantial offer," she told me during our first meeting. "But you need to understand the implications. This kind of money changes relationships. Are you prepared for that?" I thought I was. I thought $15 million would finally prove to the Hartwells that I was worthy of respect, that my contributions mattered, that I belonged in their family not just as Jake's wife, but as a successful person in my own right. The acquisition process took 3 months of due diligence, legal reviews, and contract negotiations. Through it all, I maintained my normal routine. family dinners on Sundays, holiday planning with Patricia, birthday celebrations and anniversary, acknowledgments. I was living in two worlds, my secret reality as a multimillionaire business owner and my public role as Jake's quietly ambitious wife. The sale was finalized on a Wednesday in early October. I remember sitting in Sandra's office, signing the final documents, watching her wire $15 million into my personal account. "Congratulations," she said, shaking my hand. "You've just joined a very exclusive club." That night, I planned to tell Jake everything over our anniversary dinner. We had reservations at the restaurant where we had our first date, I had bought champagne, and I had rehearsed exactly how I would share this incredible news. Instead, Patricia called with her invitation to that family meeting. Sitting at that mahogany table surrounded by 15 family members, I felt like prey that had wandered into a carefully orchestrated hunt. Patricia's smile was predatory as she placed a thick manila folder in front of me. The room fell silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. "Amanda, sweetheart, we've been watching your little business grow," Patricia began, her voice honeyed but sharp. "We're so proud of how hard you've worked. Aren't we proud, everyone?" A chorus of murmured agreements filled the room, but the faces around the table told a different story. These weren't expressions of pride. They were expressions of barely contained resentment and calculated greed. "The thing is," Patricia continued, opening the folder, "we've been concerned about the stress this is putting on you and Jake. Marriage should be a partnership, shouldn't it? And partnerships require shared responsibilities and shared assets." My hands started shaking as I saw the documents spread before me: transfer agreements, partnership dissolution papers, legal documents that would effectively sign over my company to a newly formed Hartwell Family Trust, with Jake as the managing partner. "We've had our attorneys draft a simple solution." Robert's voice boomed from the head of the table. "This will ensure that your hard work benefits the entire family as it should. After all, family resources helped make this possible." "What family resources?" I found my voice, though it came out smaller than I intended. "I built this company with my own money, my own time, my own clients." Marcus leaned forward, his smile cold. "Amanda, let's be realistic. You used family connections for networking. You attended events as a Hartwell. Your credibility came from being part of this family. And Jake's salary supported you while you played entrepreneur." The word "played" hit me like a slap. 8 years of marriage, 3 years of building $1 million company, and they still saw it as playing. "Jake?" I turned to my husband, desperate for support. "Tell them. You know how hard I've worked. You know I did this myself." But Jake wasn't looking at me. He was staring at the papers on the table, his jaw tight with what I initially mistook for anger on my behalf. Then he spoke, and my world shattered. "Amanda, maybe they have a point. I mean, we are married. What's yours is mine, right? And what's mine is yours. This is just formalizing that." "Formalizing what, exactly?" I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Taking my company and putting it under your family's control?" Patricia's mask of sweetness finally slipped. "Don't be dramatic, dear. You'll still be involved. You'll still run the day-to-day operations. You just won't have to worry about all those complicated ownership details." That's when Great Aunt Judith, who had been silent until now, cackled from her corner chair. "Honey, you didn't really think they were going to let you keep all that? Money to yourself, did you? Hartwell money belongs to Hartwells." The room erupted in uncomfortable laughter, and I realized this wasn't just about my business. This was about power, control, and keeping me in my designated place within their family hierarchy. They had never seen me as an equal. They had never intended to. "Sign the papers, Amanda," Marcus said, his voice carrying the weight of an ultimatum. "Or things could get very complicated for you and Jake." I looked around the table at these people I had tried so hard to impress, to belong with, to love. Their faces were masks of polite expectation, mixed with barely concealed hostility. Even Sarah, sweet Sarah, who had always been kind to me, was nodding in agreement with her husband. But it was Jake's expression that broke my heart completely. He wasn't being coerced or manipulated. He was part of this. He had known this was coming, had participated in planning it, had chosen his family's greed over his wife's achievements. Have you ever had a moment where everything you thought you knew about your life suddenly shifted into focus, and you realized you'd been living a lie? That's what happened to me in that dining room. I wasn't a beloved daughter-in-law. I was a resource to be managed. I picked up the pen they had placed beside the papers. Around the table, I could see shoulders relaxing, satisfied smiles spreading across faces. They thought they had won. "Before I sign this," I said, my voice steady for the first time that evening, "I should probably tell you something about my little company." Patricia waved dismissively. "Whatever it is, dear, it doesn't matter now. Just sign." I looked directly at Jake as I spoke my next words. "I sold it 3 months ago for $15 million. The silence that followed my announcement was deafening. You know those moments in movies where everything stops and you can hear your own heartbeat? That's exactly what happened in Patricia's dining room. 15 faces stared at me with expressions ranging from disbelief to rage to something that looked almost like respect. Patricia was the first to recover. "That's impossible. We would have known. Jake would have told us." I turned to look at my husband, whose face had gone completely white. "Jake didn't know because I didn't tell him, just like he didn't tell me about this ambush you've all planned." Marcus slammed his hand on the table, making the china rattle. "You can't sell a marital asset without your husband's consent. That sale is invalid." "Actually," I said, reaching into my purse and pulling out a business card, "you should probably speak to my attorney about that. Sandra Chen, corporate law. She's been very thorough about documenting my company's ownership structure. Turns out, everything I built before and during my marriage with my own money and labor belongs to me. Not to Jake. Certainly not to you." Robert's voice was dangerously quiet. "You've made a very serious mistake, young lady. The only mistake I made was trusting that this family would ever see me as anything more than a servant to be managed." I stood up, leaving the unsigned papers on the table. "Jake, we need to talk, privately." But Jake didn't move. He sat there staring at the transfer documents as if they might change reality through sheer force of will. $15 million, he whispered. "You've had $15 million for 3 months and you didn't tell me?" "I was planning to tell you tonight, actually, over our anniversary dinner. But your family had other plans, didn't they?" The next hour was brutal. Jake tried to convince me that I had betrayed our marriage by keeping the sale secret. I tried to explain that I had wanted to protect something precious until I could share it properly. But the damage was done on both sides. He had chosen his family over me, and I had chosen to exclude him from the biggest moment of my professional life. The legal battle started immediately. Jake filed for divorce and demanded half of the sale proceeds. His family hired 3 different law firms to explore every possible angle for claiming a piece of my company's value. They questioned my business practices, investigated my clients, and even tried to prove that Jake had been an uncredited partner in my success. But Sandra had been thorough. Every transaction was documented. Every business decision was mine alone. Every client relationship was built through my efforts. The money stayed mine, but the cost was everything else I thought I valued. For 6 months, I lived in a hotel while lawyers argued about furniture and photo albums. Jake kept the house. His family had co-signed the mortgage, so they had leverage. There too. I kept my bank account, my car, and a devastating education about how little my 8-year marriage had actually meant to the people I had tried so desperately to impress. The divorce was finalized on a rainy Tuesday in April. I signed the papers in Sandra's office, just as I had signed the business sale document 6 months earlier. But this time, I felt lighter instead of heavier. Like I was finally free to become who I was supposed to be. 1 year later, I'm sitting in the home office of my new house, a beautiful craftsman bungalow that I bought with cash in a neighborhood where no one cares about family names or generational wealth. I've started a nonprofit foundation that provides business mentorship and startup funding for women entrepreneurs who don't have family money or connections to back their dreams. Last month, I got a LinkedIn message from Sarah, David's wife. She had quietly started her own jewelry design business and wanted advice about scaling up. We met for coffee, and she told me something that made everything worthwhile. Watching. You stand up to them that night changed how I see myself, she said. I realized I had been asking permission to exist in my own life. Jake tried to contact me twice, once through a lawyer, asking if I would consider investing in a new venture with him. Once directly, calling to say he missed me and wondered if we could try counseling. Both times I declined. Some bridges once burned aren't meant to be rebuilt. The Hartwell family still lives in their mansion, still gathers for their Sunday dinners, still operates under the assumption that love is conditional and family is a business arrangement. But now they do it without my participation, without my energy, and without access to my resources. And honestly, I've never been happier. If you've made it this far in my story, I want you to know something important. The hardest part of leaving wasn't losing Jake or his family's approval. The hardest part was realizing how much of myself I had given away in exchange for acceptance that was never actually available. For years, I had operated under the belief that if I just worked hard enough, achieved enough, contributed enough, I would earn my place at their table. But the truth is, they never intended to make room for me as an equal. I was cast in the role of grateful beneficiary, and stepping outside that role threatened their entire power structure. The night of that confrontation taught me that some families aren't built on love. They're built on control. And when control becomes more important than caring, when maintaining hierarchy matters more than honoring individual achievements, then what you have isn't really family at all. It's just a corporation where some people hold more shares than others. But here's what I want you to understand. If you're watching this and seeing pieces of your own life reflected in my story, your worth isn't determined by other people's willingness to recognize it. Your achievements don't require external validation to be real, and your right to respect doesn't depend on anyone else's comfort level with your success. I spent 8 years trying to shrink myself to fit into spaces that were never designed to accommodate who I really was. I dimmed my light so others wouldn't feel outshined. I minimized my accomplishments so others wouldn't feel threatened. I accepted crumbs of acknowledgement and convinced myself I was grateful for the nourishment. That stops now, for me, and hopefully, for some of you too. The foundation I started has funded 43 women-owned businesses in the past year. We've created over 200 jobs and generated more than $8 million in economic activity. But more importantly, we've created a network of entrepreneurs who support each other's success instead of competing for scarce approval from gatekeepers who never intended to open their doors anyway. I get letters from our grant recipients that make me cry happy tears. Women who started catering businesses, consulting firms, retail shops, and tech companies. Women who are creating generational wealth for their families and employment opportunities in their communities. Women who understand that building something meaningful requires surrounding yourself with people who celebrate your growth instead of fearing it. Have you ever experienced a moment where you realized you were asking for permission to be successful from people who benefited from keeping you small? Drop a comment and share your story. I read every single one, and I want you to know that your experience matters and your voice deserves to be heard. If this resonates with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories about setting boundaries, building authentic relationships, and creating success on your own terms. I share new content every week about entrepreneurship, family, dynamics, and personal growth that might help you navigate your own journey toward authentic self-respect. One more thing before I close. Last week, I ran into Monica at a coffee shop in downtown Seattle. She was visiting Jake, and she recognized me despite my new haircut and confident posture. We made awkward small talk for a few minutes, and then she said something that surprised me. "I heard about your foundation," she said quietly. "What you're doing for other women. It's impressive." For just a moment, I saw past her practiced smile to something real underneath. "Thank you," I said. "That means more than you know." As she walked away, I realized that even within families that operate on power and control, there are individuals who sometimes recognize authenticity when they see it. Monica might never admit it publicly, but I think she understood that night. At the dinner table, I hadn't been defiant or disrespectful. I had simply refused to disappear. So here's my challenge for you. Whether you're dealing with difficult family dynamics, workplace politics, or any situation where people expect you to minimize yourself for their comfort, what would happen if you stopped asking permission to be exceptional? What would change if you started surrounding yourself with people who want to see you succeed instead of people who need you to fail? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me about a time when you chose your own growth over someone else's comfort. And remember, if you enjoyed this story, there are dozens more like it on my channel about real people navigating complex family relationships and finding their authentic power. Your story matters. Your success matters. And you deserve to be surrounded by people who understand that your light doesn't dim theirs. It helps them shine brighter too.